The message came through just after sunrise. No greeting, no explanation. Just a sentence that sat there on my phone like it didn't belong to me. Dad, please don't come. They don't want you here. I read it twice. Then a third time standing in my kitchen with a mug of coffee cooling between my hands. Outside, the street was already awake. Delivery trucks, footsteps. Life continuing without any sense that something had just shifted for me. I am 66 years old. I've learned not to react to the first feeling. Time has a way of sanding the edges off emotion if you let it, but that message still landed hard. It wasn't the words themselves. It was who they came from. My daughter had never spoken to me like that. Not in her voice, not even in text. I typed back slowly. What's going on? The reply came almost immediately. It's complicated, just trust me, I'll explain later. Later is another word people use when they're afraid. I set the phone down and sat at the table, staring at the grain in the wood. I thought about the last time I'd seen her, the way she'd hugged me a little too tightly, then stepped back like she was worried someone might be watching. I already knew who they were. Her in-laws. They had money, loud money, the kind that announces itself before it earns respect. Big house, new cars, opinions delivered like facts. From the first dinner, they'd treated me politely in the way people do when they've already decided you don't matter. I never corrected them. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe the channel and let me know in the comments where are you watching from. It helps more than you know. I packed anyway. Not aggressively, not defiantly, just deliberately. A small bag, a clean shirt, the watch I've worn for years because it keeps good time and doesn't ask for attention. On the drive, I replayed that message in my head. Don't come. Don't embarrass us. Don't remind them that you exist. That was the translation. I didn't go straight to their house. I stopped at a cafe a few blocks away and ordered coffee I didn't need. I watched people through the window. Couples, parents with kids, everyone assuming their place in the world was secure. Mine was. I just hadn't needed to prove it in a long time. I checked my phone again. Another message from my daughter. They're hosting people, important people. They don't want complications. Complications. I smiled then. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. That word gets used a lot when someone is afraid of being exposed. I typed one more response. I'll take care of it. She didn't reply. So I made a call. Not to her, not to her husband, and certainly not to her in-laws. I called someone who had answered my calls for decades. Someone who knew exactly who I was even when I didn't announce it. We spoke briefly. No explanations needed, just confirmation. Yes, he said. I'll be there. I finished my coffee and drove the rest of the way. I parked down the street where no one would notice my car. The house was larger than I remembered, newly painted, busy, caterers moving in and out, valet stands set up near the curb. So that's what this was, a performance. I stayed in the car for a moment longer, hands on the wheel, breathing evenly. I wasn't angry. I was curious, because when someone tells you not to come, what they're really saying is that they're afraid of what happens if you do. And by the time I stepped out of that car, I already knew something they didn't. They had planned the day very carefully. They just hadn't planned for me. I hadn't even reached the front door yet when I realized this wasn't about family. It was about money and who really controlled it. I didn't walk straight up to the house. I circled once, slow and unremarkable, like someone who had nowhere urgent to be. The street was lined with polished cars and temporary signs guiding guests toward the front. Valets moved with rehearsed smiles. Music drifted from inside, light and confident. Everything about the place said this event mattered. Everything about the way my daughter had texted said I didn't. I checked my phone again. No new messages. I could have turned around, driven home, pretended this was nothing more than an awkward misunderstanding. But I've spent too many years watching deals fall apart because someone assumed silence meant weakness. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the house. A woman in a tailored jacket intercepted me near the gate. Professional, polite, assessed me in less than a second. Guest name? She asked. I gave it. She scanned her list. I'm sorry, she said, already preparing to redirect me. You're not on here. I know, I replied. She hesitated. People aren't trained for agreement. I'm here to see my daughter, I added. That changed the calculation. She motioned toward the entrance. One moment. Inside, the house looked even larger than it had from the street. High ceilings, expensive art chosen more for cost than meaning. Conversations floated past, all about opportunities and projections. I spotted my daughter near the back, standing slightly apart from a group of women who looked like they belonged. Her smile was fixed, her eyes searching. When she saw me, it flickered. Fear first, then relief, then something like panic. She crossed the room quickly. "I told you not to come," she whispered. "I know," I said gently. "That's why I'm here." Her hands trembled. "They'll be angry." "I'm not here for them," I replied. "I'm here for you." Before she could respond, a man stepped in front of us, her father-in-law. Tall, confident, voice that carried without effort. "Is there a problem?" he asked. "No," I said. "Just visiting family." He smiled thinly. "This is a private event." "I'm aware." My daughter's husband appeared then, hovering, uncomfortable. He didn't meet my eyes. The father-in-law gestured toward the door. "Perhaps another time." I nodded. "Perhaps." That's when my phone vibrated. A message. Short. "I'm outside." I excused myself and walked back toward the entrance without another word. The valet area was busier now. Guests arriving. Laughter, cameras flashing. Near the curb stood a familiar figure. Older than when I'd last seen him, but still sharp, still composed. He saw me and smiled. "Good to see you," he said. "Likewise," I replied. We walked back together. Inside, conversation slowed. People noticed him immediately. He didn't need an introduction, his presence did the work. Whispers started. My daughter's in-laws stiffened. The father-in-law's smile faltered. He stepped forward. "I wasn't expecting you." "You should have been," the man beside me said calmly. "This concerns my firm." Silence spread outward like a dropped glass. People listened now. The father-in-law tried to recover. "There must be some misunderstanding." "There is," the man replied, "and it involves contracts you signed assuming certain conditions." I watched my daughter's face as the pieces fell into place. Her husband finally looked at me. Real understanding dawned. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't accused anyone. I had simply arrived with the truth, and truth has weight. What they didn't realize yet was that this wasn't just an introduction. It was the beginning of consequences they couldn't undo. The room didn't empty. That was the strange part. No one rushed out. No one protested loudly. Instead, the energy shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Conversations dulled. Smiles thinned. People leaned in not to speak but to listen. That's how you know something important is happening. My daughter's father-in-law tried to regain control by moving us toward a quieter corner, away from the center of the room. It was a practiced maneuver, the kind someone uses when they're used to problems being solved behind closed doors. "I think we should discuss this privately," he said. The man beside me didn't argue. He simply nodded and followed. I stayed where I was. "I'll be right here," I said. That unsettled him more than resistance would have. They spoke in hushed tones a few steps away. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I've sat across enough tables to recognize panic disguised as negotiation. My daughter stood beside me now, close enough that I could feel her breathing slow, steadying. "What's happening?" she asked quietly. "Something overdue," I replied. Her husband hovered nearby, caught between loyalty and fear. He kept glancing toward his parents, then back at me like he was trying to decide which side of the room was safer. The father-in-law returned alone. His confidence had thinned. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said again, louder this time for the benefit of the nearby guests. "Certain assumptions were made." "By you," I said calmly. He bristled. "You don't know what you're talking about." That's when the man I'd brought stepped forward. "Actually," he said, "I do." He spoke clearly, not aggressively. Names were mentioned, not people, projects, timelines, numbers that meant something to the people listening, all of them written in words, not figures. A few guests exchanged glances. One man excused himself quietly. Another checked his phone. Momentum doesn't need shouting. It just needs direction. The father-in-law's wife joined him then, her expression tight. "This isn't appropriate," she said. "This is a family event." "It stopped being that when you told my daughter not to invite me," I replied. Silence followed. My daughter stiffened beside me. The woman recovered quickly. "That's not what happened." I have the message, I said. I didn't show it. I didn't need to. The idea that proof existed was enough. Her husband finally spoke. Dad, maybe we should. Not now, his father snapped. The tone was sharp. Public. A mistake. Several heads turned. The man beside me checked his watch. I have another meeting shortly, he said. But this can't wait much longer. The father-in-law swallowed. Let's step into the study, he suggested. No, the man replied. This doesn't require secrecy. That was the moment the balance tipped, because secrecy is power's favorite hiding place. I watched my daughter carefully. Her shoulders were straighter now, her eyes clearer. She leaned in. You planned this. I planned to be ready, I corrected. The father-in-law tried one last approach. What do you want? I smiled just slightly. I already have what I want, I said. You've shown everyone exactly who you are. The man beside me added, and by the end of the week, the agreements you've relied on will be reviewed. That word again. Reviewed. It landed harder than any threat. People began to drift away then. Quietly. Deliberately. No one wanted to be too close when the fallout came. The father-in-law stood rigid, his image cracking in real time. My daughter's husband looked like he'd aged years in minutes. I placed a hand on my daughter's shoulder. We're leaving, I said. She nodded. As we walked out, no one stopped us. Behind us, the music resumed, a little louder than before. Forced. Artificial. The kind people use to pretend nothing has gone wrong. But plenty had, and this was only the beginning. By the next morning, the calls started coming in, and none of them were asking for explanations. The first call came before sunrise. I was already awake. Old habits don't disappear just because the stakes change. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the screen lighting up the dark room with a name I hadn't expected to see again. My daughter's father-in-law. I let it ring. When it stopped, a message followed, short, controlled, carefully written. We need to talk. Privately. That word again. I made coffee instead. By the time the sun came up, there were 3 more missed calls. 2 messages. Each one softer than the last. Urgency replacing authority. I didn't respond. My daughter called around mid-morning. They're panicking, she said quietly. They're asking questions they should have asked years ago. How are you? I asked. There was a pause. Then relief. I slept, she said, for the first time in a while. That mattered more than anything else. The situation unraveled faster than even I expected. Word travels quickly in business circles when uncertainty appears. People distance themselves early. They don't wait for confirmation. They protect their own positions first. By afternoon, my phone rang again. This time it was someone else. A partner. Measured voice. Direct question. Is there a problem we should be aware of? No, I replied. There's a correction. That seemed to satisfy him. The father-in-law finally stopped calling and sent an invitation instead. A meeting. Neutral location. Neutral tone. I declined. That night, my daughter came over. She looked different. Lighter. Still cautious, but no longer folded in on herself. They're blaming each other, she said. They think this is temporary. People always do, I replied. She hesitated. Did you always know this would happen? I considered the question. I knew they were careless, I said. I didn't know they'd be this loud about it. The next morning, the news reached the edge of public awareness. Nothing explosive. Just a quiet withdrawal from a project. A pause. A review. That was enough. By noon, the father-in-law called again. This time I answered. His voice was different, stripped of performance. We can fix this, he said. Whatever misunderstanding there wasn't one, I replied. He inhaled sharply. What do you want? I want you to stop, I said. Stop pretending you're untouchable. Stop involving my daughter in your image management. She married into this family, he said defensively. She married your son, I replied. That doesn't make her property. Silence. Stretched. You've put us in a difficult position, he said finally. You put yourselves there, I answered. I just showed up. After that, things moved quickly. Accounts were frozen, meetings postponed, invitations rescinded. The social circle that had once closed ranks around them began to thin. My daughter's husband called that evening. Alone. I didn't know, he said. Now you do, I replied. What do I do? He asked. That's up to you, I said. But don't ask my daughter to carry the consequences of choices she didn't make. He agreed too quickly, which told me more than his words ever could. By the end of the week, the house that had once been full of people was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that follows exposure. My daughter stood in her kitchen one evening, phone in hand, watching messages stack up unanswered. They don't know what to do, she said. They will, I replied. They'll adapt, or they won't. Either way, it was no longer her burden. That night, she hugged me longer than usual. Thank you, she said, for coming anyway. I nodded. Some invitations are rescinded not because you don't belong, but because your presence changes the truth. They weren't done yet, but their final move would cost them far more than they expected. The final move didn't come from the father-in-law. That surprised me. It came from someone who thought they could clean up the mess quietly without involving him at all. An attorney. Polite, smooth, the kind of voice that's practiced at making uncomfortable things sound reasonable. He left a voicemail asking to clarify a few misunderstandings and explore options that might benefit everyone involved. Everyone is another one of those words that means very little when pressure is applied unevenly. I didn't call back. Instead, I drove over to my daughter's place. She opened the door before I knocked, like she'd been waiting for the sound. They sent someone, she said. I know, I replied. She stepped aside, letting me in. The place was modest, lived in, quiet in a way that felt earned, not forced. They want me to help smooth things over, she continued. They said it would be better for my marriage. And what do you want? I asked. She didn't answer right away. She poured coffee, hands steady, movements deliberate. I want the pressure to stop, she said finally. I want to stop being told what's good for me by people who never asked. That's already happening, I said. She looked up. It is? Yes, I replied. They just haven't accepted it yet. That afternoon, the attorney tried again, this time by email. Longer, more detailed. He suggested a conversation that could restore confidence and prevent unnecessary escalation. I forwarded it, not to my daughter, to the man I'd called before all of this started. The response came back within the hour. Short, handled. That evening, the tone shifted. The attorney called once more, but the smoothness was gone. He spoke carefully now, choosing words like someone walking across thin ice. There may have been some assumptions, he said, about influence. Assumptions are expensive, I replied. He cleared his throat. My clients are prepared to reconsider their position. Good, I said. They should. He hesitated. They're concerned about exposure. That's not my concern, I replied. That's a consequence. The call ended quickly after that. My daughter sat across from me at the table, listening without interrupting. I don't like this, she said quietly. I don't like how they're scrambling. You're not supposed to like it, I replied. You're supposed to be free from it. She nodded slowly. Later that night, her husband called. Not angry, not defensive, tired. They're blaming each other, he said. They think you orchestrated this to punish them. I didn't punish anyone, I replied. I showed up. There was a long pause. I didn't know they were like this, he said. You knew, I replied gently. You just thought it was normal. He didn't argue. That was new. The next morning, my daughter received a message from her mother-in-law. Short, cold, final. We think it's best if we take some space. My daughter read it twice, then set the phone down. Good, she said. I could use the quiet. By the end of the week, the narrative had flipped. People who once praised the family's influence now spoke carefully around their name. Invitations slowed. Meetings were postponed indefinitely. The certainty they had relied on evaporated, and with it their leverage. The father-in-law called one last time, not to demand, to ask. What will it take to make this stop? He said. I thought about it. Nothing, I replied. It's already stopped. He didn't understand that, but he would. My daughter stood beside me as I ended the call. I didn't ask you to do this, she said. I know, I replied. That's why it matters. She smiled then, not the polite smile she'd worn for years. A real one, the kind that comes when pressure finally lifts. We sat there for a while, saying nothing, and for the first time since that message arrived on my phone, everything felt settled. What happened next didn't involve another call or confrontation. It involved a choice that changed my daughter's future for good. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. Days passed without calls, without messages framed as concern, without anyone asking for meetings or favors. The space felt unfamiliar at first, like stepping out of a room where noise had been constant for so long you'd forgotten what silence was supposed to sound like. My daughter noticed it too. She started sleeping better, eating regularly, laughing at small things again, like she used to before everything became about appearances and approval. One evening we sat on her balcony as the sun dipped behind the buildings. Nothing fancy, folding chairs, 2 cups of tea cooling between us. "I didn't realize how much of myself I was shrinking," she said. "You don't notice while you're doing it," I replied. "You only notice when you stop." Her husband had been staying elsewhere for a few days, not as a punishment, as a pause, one they both needed. When he finally came over, it wasn't with excuses, it was with honesty. "I should have protected you," he said to her. "Instead, I tried to keep the peace." She listened, didn't interrupt. "I won't live like that anymore," she told him. "With or without you." That was the first real boundary she'd ever drawn, and it held. They didn't fix everything overnight. No one does. But something shifted. Decisions were made without outside voices. Conversations happened without an audience. For the first time, their life belonged to them. As for her in-laws, they faded. Not dramatically, not loudly, just enough that their absence was noticeable. The projects they once boasted about moved forward without them. The rooms they used to dominate found new centers of gravity. Influence doesn't vanish in a single moment. It erodes when people stop protecting it. I didn't follow the details. I didn't need to. My role was never about humiliation or revenge. It was about making sure my daughter knew she wasn't alone when she was told to make herself smaller for someone else's comfort. Weeks later, she asked me something I hadn't expected. "Did it hurt?" she said. Getting that message, being told not to come. I thought about the kitchen, the coffee cooling, the words on my phone. "Yes," I said honestly, "but not the way you think." She looked at me. "It hurt because someone taught you that my presence was something to hide," I continued. "And I needed you to see that wasn't true." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I see it now," she said. That was enough. I didn't need apologies from people who measured worth in status. I didn't need acknowledgement from rooms that only valued control. What mattered was that my daughter stood taller than she had before, not because I stepped in, but because she stepped out of a shadow that was never hers to begin with. Some calls change your plans. Some messages change your understanding. That text told me exactly where I wasn't wanted. Showing up taught everyone where I belonged. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.